We are in Derech Hashem. We are on page 419, and we're talking about the phenomena of prophecy. We were talking about prophecy before, and we said, if you remember, the Ramchal had said that prophecy is, how did he put it, is getting how did he say it?
Attenuated messages from Hashem?
No. In other words, prophecy, he said before, prophecy is having this connection to Hashem. That's baseline prophecy. That I'm having a perfect relationship with Hashem. Like I was just saying, following the mitzvot, getting that closeness. Remember, mitzvot is only the way to connect. It's my level of connections, which is why it says in the Gemara, I mean, this is me speaking, but I believe that's why the Gemara says in Makos, I believe was, that if I do one mitzvah properly, with all of its 100% proper, so then I've assured myself of Gan Eden, of my entrance into Gan Eden. Why one? Why not 613? Why shouldn't I worry? Because it's all just a matter of connection. So if I do one, that's going to encompass everything else. I'm going to recognize this is a God. I'm going to recognize that God's in charge, and so on and so forth. Just for doing one mitzvah properly, knowing what the halacha is about that, because every mitzvah is connected to the other. So it's like, it's like a tree. So if I'm going to do one, it's going to naturally lead me to an next one, which is what it says in Pirkei Avot, that mitzvah gereret mitzvah, that one mitzvah drags you to another one. And the same thing with the Avera, and Avera gereret the Avera. That if I sin, if I distance myself, that's going to also continue. So either way, I can do it. So now we go back to this. It says, when a prophet attains the perfected level of prophecy, he will perceive everything that reaches him with a clear grasp and with complete knowledge. And he explains that this is the underlying basis of the Ramchal's discourse in this chapter. A true prophet will never err in his realization of what is prophecy. However, as he states here, the prophet must have reached the level where his prophecy is complete. Of course, until he reaches that stage of perfection, he is not technically a prophet. So he continues, and he says, this means that although, according to the process we referred to in the previous chapter, the images of the imagination will be first to arise within the prophet, and only afterwards will the emanation reach the thought process according to the ways we have mentioned. And he says, thus there is thus a twofold process in receiving prophetic vision. Since it begins with the prophet's faculty of imagination, much like a dream, we would think that it is possible for a prophet to mistake an ordinary dream as prophecy. That's what I was warning for last week, and so on and so forth. Therefore, the Ramchal continues to explain that this is not the case. He continues to say, once he acquires the clarity of his prophecy, he will grasp that he has truly become a prophet. And he'll know that the prophet will realize without any doubt that what he's experienced is prophecy. That is, he will realize that he has bonded with Hashem, and that Hashem is revealing himself to him and performing all of those actions that are taking place within him. And remember, he said, the Ramchal wrote before, that the prophet loses his abilities to function physically and remains totally dependent upon Hashem. He will then grasp that the images that were etched within him are prophetic images that have been activated through the divine Shefa that is being bestowed upon him. And he explains he will realize that the images produced by his imagination are products of prophecy, not the ordinary workings of his mind. So again, once I reach this level of prophecy and I am understanding, and I've worked at it, so I understand whatever I'm seeing is really prophecy. So now the machinations in my mind are going to be prophecy. I'm going to recognize them as that. And I won't be seeing dragons or something in my mind, or all the fantasies that people pull out because they had bad pizza or bad cholent. Whatever it's going to be. You're not going to have those sort of thoughts. He will then grasp that the images that were etched in him are prophetic images. Oh, I just said, I'm sorry. That have been activated through the divine Shefa that is being bestowed upon him. He will further realize that the knowledge of the matter is being established within him through the Shefa of prophecy. He will understand that he will retain the understanding of what he grasped through prophecy, which is, again, I'm going to be aware of it. That's what it means. Okay, when I have prophecy, I'm going to be aware of it. I'm going to be able to retain it. So when you come to me and ask me, I can say it. It's not, I won't have to be in that ecstatic way where I can't function physically and so on and so forth. I'll be walking around, I can tell you, which is why all our prophets were walking around when they were talking. They were talking to people, they were expressing it very nicely, so on and so forth. Consequently, no uncertainty will remain about his prophecy, nor about any of his aspects, neither in the preliminaries, can't read English anymore, nor in the ramifications. So he says, thus, even though the process of prophecy is based upon the use of the person's imagination, the prophet realizes that all steps in the process are objective elements of the prophetic experience. So now the Ramchal explains that becoming a true prophet is a developmental process. And he explains that this chapter it's discussing someone who achieves a level of full prophecy. And now he has to explain how you get to there. She says, so what you need to know further is that a prophet does not reach the highest level all at once. Okay, that's number one. We don't reach all at once. Rather, he ascends step by step until he attains full prophecy. The matter requires apprenticeship, like all other disciplines and crafts. And he explains that disciplines refer to fields of study such as mathematics and physics, while crafts refer to manual skills such as carpentry and plumbing. As I explained to somebody today, imagine you want to, I have my, what do they call it, siding guy, and I have my electrician here. Assuming that my siding guy has not been trained as an electrician, and assuming that my electrician has been trained as a siding guy, I wouldn't interchange them. I would say, hey, you come here, you're taller, you come here and do the electrical, and you do the siding. Because what's going to happen? I'm going to have a mess on both sides. I'm going to electrocute myself when I open the windows, when I open the lights, and on top of that, the siding is going to fly off. Because you don't have any shimush, any apprenticeship in these things. So that's what he's saying. If you want to be a prophet, you had to go to school, and you had to become attached to a prophet, somebody who had that already. Otherwise, you won't know how to properly do this. Okay? And you'll think that God is speaking to you. I've had many people throughout my illustrious career tell me that God has spoken to them. Whenever they tell me that, I always get a little afraid. But they've all, people have told me that, okay? And I look at them and say very nicely that the Torah tells us that prophecy is only given to fools and children. Clearly you're not a child, so I assume you're a fool. And they don't appreciate that either, but put it where it is. Nobody's going to get prophecy, okay? So it's certainly not without any guidance. So he says, again, like every other discipline, so where one must climb up their rungs until he has mastered them thoroughly. Okay, and again, anybody who's studied anything, math or sciences or Judaism, you can't take a crash course and learn everything there is to do. Crash course in history will only get you so far. It give you basics, and that's it. So if you want to learn more and more and more to understand why one thing interconnects to the other, you have to really study that. So this explains the concept of the disciples of the prophets that are found in the book of Malachim. And he explains that although Bnei HaNeviim is literally sons of the prophets, the Targum Yonasan always translates the phrase as disciples of the prophets. The Sifrei derives from this phrase that one's disciples are considered his children. This is also an important thing. When you go to teach, that you have to look at your students like they're your children. What does that mean? If I go and I see you just as a student, like we do in college, then, college is basically the way to do it, then whether you pass or not is none of my business. I'm paid to teach you. You're just one of my customers, and either you're pleased or you're not. On the other hand, if I consider you like my children, then I'm going to do everything possible to ensure that you understand what you're doing. And even if it means I have to take a little longer for you, give you a little more attention, whatever it's going to be, I'm going to treat you like my own child. And I'm going to love you. And when I love you, I'm going to teach you properly. As compared to saying, hey, you're a waste of my time, I'm not going to do this. Okay, so that's one of the things that we have to always understand as a teacher, certainly of children, that you have to consider them in that light. And by the way, even as an adult, somebody, if I treat you in that sort of a manner, trying to figure out what really, you're having a problem, let me try to figure out how I can teach you better, or how you can get it better. Again, it's that sort of relationship that they were trying to establish. And whenever you would go to a Navi, you're not going to be a child, you will be an adult. So the Ramchal adds here that these disciples were not just learning the teachings of the prophets, but rather were being trained to become prophets themselves. This is also the view of the Rambam, Maimonides, and others. So Rav Chaim Friedlander adds that this phrase refers specifically to the shivot that specialize in teaching the ways of prophecy. Right, so you're going to go. Point is, you have to climb the ladder. Okay, and they would stand before the prophet to receive the necessary training, learning the ways of prophecy. Since achieving prophecy, he explains, is a process that must be learned like any other skill, it was necessary for an aspiring prophet to find adequate guidance from an accomplished prophet. From Tosefta, it's apparent that these disciples can still be called by that name, even after they have achieved full prophecy. This is also apparent from the incident in Malachim Aleph, 1 Kings, as explained by the Gemara in Sanhedrin, and the Ramban states that it was customary not to prophesy about the future in the presence of a greater prophet, but rather to allow him like a disciple, rather to follow him like a disciple, and that these are the Bnei Nevi'im mentioned in the book of prophets. So if I have a prophecy and my teacher's there, by the way, it also would apply to halacha. If my teacher is in the room, or even in the town, I am not allowed, unless he has given me permission, to adjudicate a case of Jewish law. Even if I know assuming I know what the answer is, and I would normally be adjudicating that. Once my Rebbe is in town, I have to seek his guidance before I would rule. So that's why, when people would, even to this very day, if you're one of the, I don't know, I'll use Rav Shechter. If you're a student of Rav Shechter, and now you can get him because he's on speed dial. So once he's on speed dial, but you want to make, if it's a major question, I'm not talking about, Rebbe, I didn't put my film on this morning, or is it too late, blah, blah, blah. Okay, you can rule on that. But if it's something that is a real question, you certainly should do the research first, so that you can sound like an intelligent person when you're asking the question for the other person. But ultimately, you should ask your Rebbe before you rule. That's just a proper way to do it. So also in this case, if I would have a prophecy, let's assume I went to the school of prophecy, and I'm a known prophet, but my teacher is in town, so I have a prophecy, I should not say the prophecy he's saying. Same rule as halacha, unless my Rebbe says, yes, you can say so. So there is definitely a pecking order here. The Ramchal presents, at least according to the Ramchal, so the Ramchal presents a possible experience for the beginner who is still untrained in prophecy. He said, it is possible that a divine revelation will reach an individual and he will not recognize it recognize the way an accomplished prophet will recognize it. So he says, since the disciple has not yet reached a high enough level in his development, he will not recognize this as beginning of a prophetic experience. Rather, he will regard it as an originating from within the physical, perceptual faculties. And he explains, he will think that the images in his mind originate from within his perceptual awareness of the world around him. But it cannot really be a physical awareness, because we learned above that all of the senses of the prophet are dormant during a prophecy. He will be unaware of the true nature of this experience, until the prophetic shefa will intensify within him, and then he will recognize the true nature of the matter. As an example of this type of experience was Hashem's calling out to Shmuel, for he did not initially have complete prophecy, and the shefa of prophecy was not yet fully bestowed upon him. So he explains that even though Hashem revealed his glory to Shmuel by calling out to him, this was only the initial shefa that precedes full prophecy. At this point, he was not yet ready to receive the full shefa of prophecy, and consequently, he was not yet a prophet. Rather, what appeared to him was a sound similar to that of a physical sound. And he explains, before the shefa intensified, Shmuel mistook the revelation of Hashem to be a physical sound. As stated in the subsequent psukim, the verses, he thought it was Eli Kohen who was calling to him. And he did not grasp anything more than this. But afterwards, the shefa of prophecy was bestowed upon him fully, and he recognized and perceived the prophecy the way it was meant to be. Okay? So thus, when Shmuel received the full shefa, there was no longer any doubt as to the nature of his prophetic experience. The verse does not clearly state that the shefa was greater when Shmuel finally understood that he was receiving a prophecy. However, in verse 9, Eli instructed Shmuel to reply to the sound, "Speak Hashem, for your servant is listening." And in verse 10, Hashem calls Shmuel's name twice, which signifies an increase in the shefa. It should also be noted that Eli was acting as Shmuel's mentor in this regard, instructing his disciple how to prepare for prophecy. Now, if you look in the verses, you will see that while Shmuel says, "Speak Hashem, for your servant is listening," all he says is "speak for your service." If I remember correctly, speak, skipping God's name, because he doesn't want to use God's name in vain. And in case this was just a bad dream, or a dream of some sort, he wasn't trusting himself. So he just says, "Speak, for your servant is listening." So even with direction from his Rebbe, namely Eli, he still takes caution, because he's not 100% sure. So just, again, when you're looking at the verses, you'll see that. Similarly, regarding the vision of the burning bush as it appears to Moshe Rabbeinu, it was in the beginning, it was revealed to him only a physical perception, and he saw the bush burning in fire. And he explains the Ramchal seems to be including the vision of the burning bush as part of his prophecy. This agrees with the approach of Maimonides, who understands the passages in the Torah where people come into contact with malachim, with angels, as prophecy. Alternately, the Ramchal could just be referring to the event generally as the vision of the burning bush, and in the beginning it was revealed to him only as a physical perception, refers exclusively to Hashem's voice, similar to his discussion of Shmuel's prophecy above. This approach conforms with Nachmanides, who sharply disagrees with Maimonides, maintaining that encounters with Malachim are not necessarily prophetic, and the Torah should therefore be understood literally. So you have a nice argument as to how we should view Malachim. By the way, we don't know if we've seen Malachim. It's an interesting thing too. Most people will never know if they saw an angel, because the angel would look like us. Thus you have the instances of Abraham, Lot, Manoach, Shimshon's father, and many others who didn't know that they were talking with angels or dealing with angels. So, it's very possible that we see angels every day, and they interact with us, and we wouldn't know it. I don't know why they would interact with us. Not just coming up for a cup of coffee and they're not filling up gas. So I'm not sure, what's going on there, but they could be, as the show goes, there could be angels amongst us. There was some sort of show about that. I forget what it was.
Yeah, there were a couple.
But yeah. I remember with Michael Landon or something.
That was one of them, yeah.
Right. So anyway, to get back to this, so Moshe saw the bush burning in fire. At that point, Hashem called to him with a sound that was similar to the voice of his father. But afterwards, Hashem bestowed fully upon Moshe the shefa of prophecy, and he received the prophecy properly. So Moshe there realized that he was experiencing prophecy without any doubts, and the vision or the message. So the Ramchal explains the process of learning prophecy. Those who are in the apprenticeship of prophecy will receive training in specific methods to bring upon themselves the divine shefa and to nullify the impediments of the material nature of the body. And he explains that the Ramchal explained above that physical matter cannot sustain the revelation of the glory of Hashem. The aspiring prophet must therefore learn how to neutralize the impediments placed before him by his body in his quest to achieve prophecy. What would you think one of the impediments would be, by the way?
Not getting enough sleep, maybe?
Physical needs.
No.
Food, drink.
The physical impediments could just be, I can't believe this is happening. I won't allow this to happen. When you're trying to go to sleep sometimes, when you're tired, right? You want to go to sleep, what happens? Your mind's racing 1,000 miles a minute. And you try to calm yourself down, and the more you try to calm yourself down, the worse it gets. And thus you get insomnia. You just don't sleep until you collapse, okay? Or there's so many other things that you can think about in that sort of a manner. Well, we put up our walls. We hear something, we say, we're not hearing that. We see things, we say, I didn't see that. We make up those walls because we don't want to be called crazy. More than that, now I'm trying to see things that other people don't see. Think about Calvin Hobbes for that one. Okay, he sees his tiger coming alive. We all get a kick out of that, but there's something there. Or my favorite Martian, where Bill Bixby, I forget the Martian's name, but it's where he would always be talking to this person, and again, nobody else could see him as a Martian. And there's other cases where people would talk to people, and others would not see them there, but they would always see them because they were the ghosts of this or that, whatever the case is going to be. So we block those things out. We block out a lot because we don't want to be called crazy. Because we've been told by our parents that your little friend, he really doesn't exist.
Childhood, you get talked out of your
right.
Imaginary friends.
Are they really imaginary friends, or were they the malachim talking to us? So I don't know. You can call me nuts all you want for that statement, but I'm not sure what we turn off a lot of stuff by saying it doesn't exist. And, we cannot do this. So, that's the impediments that we're putting up. It's not so much physical as stopping my eyes from seeing what they can see. Maybe that is physical. I don't know. But that could be what he's talking about too.
Need to grow up and face reality.
Right, need to grow up and face reality. So we stop seeing it. And we stop having hope, and we stop doing a lot of things. And that's what I think he's referring to, where we're nullifying these impediments. So, I don't know, you can think about that. Like I said, I'm willing to be proven wrong on that, but I think that's part of what he's referring to. So again, we want to bring it to nullify the impediments of the material nature of the body, and to bring downwards the revelation of Hashem's illumination and the attainment of the state of Devekus to him. Generally, these methods are various intentions during prayer and the uttering of Hashem's holy names of Hashem, the uttering of holy names of Hashem, and that is what we talked about before, the uttering of one of Hashem's names through which Shefa can be brought down, and evocations of praise. Since the primary definition of prophecy is connection with Hashem, it is necessary to recite praises that give a person appreciation of Hashem's greatness. So he also writes, it's worth noting that Ramchal himself wrote a book of Psalms. I don't know what that means, whether he had his own Psalms, I'm not sure what that means. So through which the names of Hashem are combined by the methods used for such combinations. And he says the names of Hashem can be spelled out in the first letters of a series of works or in the last letters. So Rav Chaim Friedlander gives the example of the prayer on the Vakoach, in which the first letters of the words combine to form Hashem's name of 42 letters. So that prayer that we say every Friday night after Mizmor David, before L'Chadudi, that's the prayer they're talking about, and that the first letter of those words forms the Hashem's 42-letter name, which is why it's put in the small print, I'm guessing. It's a Kabbalistic thing to recite that. Okay. I don't know how people think about it when they're reciting that, but now you'll have something to think about when you're reciting that. A little more kavanah. Try to figure out what Hashem's name is. That 42-letter name, you just take that first letter off and put it together. Okay? So, as we have written above, okay, and relative to what they deserve through their actions, again, the main thing is what comes through one's actions, and to the extent that they are continuously purifying themselves through these methods, so too will they attain a closeness to Hashem. And as noted, the Ramchal concludes his Mesilas Yesharim in the book of the Path of the Righteous by writing that one who has attained the level of holiness and has become attached to Hashem's Kedusha can ascend to the next level of Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit. It therefore must be a prerequisite for reaching the still higher level of prophecy. So after you go through the 26-step program of the Ramchal in his Mesilas Yesharim, then you should pick up the next level, and you go into prophecy. It's 26 levels that he talks about. Very hard. Some people say they can't get above the seventh, but good luck to everybody on their travels. Okay, so the Shefa will then begin to bestow itself upon them. By the way, the reason it's so difficult to ascend the levels is because it's, as we learned when we were going through the book, it's minor adjustments to what you're doing, and we don't feel it. We don't feel it until we got there. That's when you realize what you've done. I mean, just think about how much you learned from birth to now, and you never thought you would learn that much. Think about how much we've eaten, the food that we've ingested from the time we were born till now. If I would show you, one rabbi once brought this up, I forget the name who said it. They said, if I would show you a storeroom of all of the food that you will eat, or the storerooms of all the food that you will eat, just you would look at me and say, I'm insane. But by the end of your life, we will all have probably eaten 5 or 6 storehouses, gigantic storehouses of food. And how many cows, if you're a meat eater, how many cows have we ingested? Think about that. Gallons of milk have we put down our system. It's just amazing when you think about a person living even 20 years, the amount of food has been in that system. And if you're a drinker, the amount of booze you throw into your system. It's just amazing. And people would say, I would never do that. Okay. Again, it's a long, long process. We're not looking at one day, we're looking at the long process. So that's why when we start moving in these things, it's like Hebrew. Those who learn Hebrew appreciate this. When we're learning the different tenses, it's a tweak. It's a vowel sometimes that will change the meaning. One simple vowel, one yud, one letter. It's not a major thing. You learned Hebrew, you learned Hebrew, you learned Hebrew. Everybody here learned Hebrew. One simple tweak of the word can change the meaning. From be careful, Zahar, to Zohar, splendor. One simple change of the vowel. It's an amazing thing. Okay? So now like I said, so the Shefa will then begin to bestow itself upon them, and they will grasp many perceptions, one after another, until they reach a state of prophecy. That is, they can grasp some perceptions even before they have reached the level of prophecy. This is a higher level of development than what the Ramchal described in section 3, where the person thinks it is only a physical experience. The aspiring prophet can begin to understand that he is experiencing Shefa even before he has crossed the threshold of becoming a genuine prophet. An accomplished prophet who already knows the ways of prophecy properly will teach them, each according to his level of preparation, what they must do to achieve the desired goal. Similarly, when the divine revelations begin to rest upon them, the prophet will teach them according to the content of the revelation and in accord with what they are still lacking within the goal that they are pursuing. So he says the teacher can learn from the revelation revealed to an individual student the level he has reached, what he still needs to attain a higher level of complete prophecy, and how to utilize the revelation revealed for attaining those higher states. Rav Chaim Friedlander points out that this is true of most prophets, but neither Moshe Rabbeinu nor Shmuel had a mentor prophet. They learned on their own. One other thing we have to say about this is that what we're hearing from the Ramchal is that the person who would come into the school of prophecy knew what he wanted to accomplish. When people go into a school, I'll use college for this, they go and they put their $10,000 and go into a state school. They put their $10,000 into the thing, and their guidance counselor, whatever you call that person, says to them, "What would you like to do?" And the person says, "I don't know. We want to learn." What do you want to learn? Everything. Most people walking into college as freshmen have no idea what their major will be. Very few have that. Am I correct? Most people do not know what they want to do. What will I do when you grow up? I have no idea. Yeah, but I want to learn. Why do you want to come to college? Because all my friends are going to college. Not a great reason to go to college, but it's nonetheless, people spend the first 2 years exploring, being on their own, exploring all the beautiful things of being on your own, and school. Finally, junior year hits, and they're told, you need to declare a major. Otherwise, we can't do anything with you anymore. So finally, the third year, they have to grow up and declare something. They're forced into it. They have to declare it, so they declare what they want. Okay, but the point is, that's not what you do when you walk into the school of prophecy. You can walk in with an idea of what you want to do. And by the way, for those college kids who did walk in, knowing what they wanted to do, understanding that this is the road they had to take, so then college was a different experience for them. They went into the school of religion, or they went into accounting, all computers, but they had a direction. So now everything they're doing was for that. The teacher could teach to that. And I could guide you when you're coming in saying, I don't know what I want to do. I want to throw my frisbee. I want to drink beer. Oh, okay, so that's what you want to do. You don't have to pay $10,000 for that. Or if you go to Notre Dame, $60,000. You don't have to do that. Just drink beer. Have a good time. You want to make pizza? Make pizza. Do what you want. I don't care. But don't waste my money and don't waste my time. And that's what's going on here. If the person coming in knew what he wanted. Now, the teacher has to assess the student. Does the student have what it takes to do it? For all those people that go into college, not everybody's college bound. So if somebody didn't care about your money, they really cared about you. So then they would say, oh, so you know what, I think you should do this or this. Maybe college isn't maybe full-time college isn't the way. Maybe you should go to community college, get yourself into that, gear yourself in, go slow, and work yourself up, and go to work in the meantime, get real-life experience. What would be wrong with saying that to people? But because people don't have that in mind, so that they only want money. So here, these people weren't being paid. seemingly. So they were just working l'shem shamayim. By working l'shem shamayim, I don't want to miss my time. So either you're ready, you're not ready, or I'm going to bring you to where you can be ready, but I won't give you more than you're ready for. Okay, that's what he's saying here. And so he says they will have a need for a teacher and a guide. Perhaps, he says, perhaps teaching entails the giving over of information, such as the intentions needed to know in the uttering of the names of Hashem, while guidance involves the practical knowledge of prophetic experience. Okay, so then until they master prophecy thoroughly, as we will see below, once one has mastered prophecy, he no longer has any need for a mentor in that area. For although revelations may have already begun and hashpa'ot are already bestowed upon them, as Ramchal mentioned above, the process of prophecy starts with a divine revelation through a bestowal of Shefa. When the Shefa intensifies, complete prophecy is achieved. So this does not mean that they will reach the final goal immediately. Rather, much guidance will be needed to reach the final goal correctly, each one according to his level and the amount of his preparation. And we'll have to stop there. So prepare.